Before we begin, please like, comment, and subscribe for more haunted history from Terrifyingly Haunted. Before computers, before laptops, before the glowing screens we write on today, there was a machine that changed literature forever. A heavy, strange, mechanical device with metal arms, black keys, and a sound that could fill a silent room. Mark Twain owned one, and according to legend, it may not have stopped writing after he died. This is the story of the haunted Mark Twain typewriter, a machine tied to one of America's greatest writers, a man who built his career on wit, ghosts, death, superstition, and the strange darkness hiding beneath ordinary life. But the mystery begins with a fact. Mark Twain was one of the first major authors in history to embrace the typewriter. At a time when most writers still worked by hand, Twain became fascinated by the machine. It was new. It was loud. It was awkward. It looked more like a piece of industrial equipment than a tool for storytelling. But Twain saw something in it. He saw the future. He bought a Remington typewriter in the 1870s, back when the machine was still a curiosity. The keys were stiff. The letters were capitalized. Mistakes were brutal. There was no delete button, no easy correction, no clean way to undo a bad line. Every word had weight. Every sentence had to be struck into existence. And for a writer like Twain, sharp, restless, impatient, the machine was both a miracle and a torment. He joked about it. He complained about it. He became fascinated by it, then irritated by it, then famous for being connected to it. Some accounts say Twain helped make literary history when one of his manuscripts became among the first ever submitted to a publisher in typewritten form. That alone would make the machine legendary. But the haunting story begins later, long after Twain's death, because people say that a typewriter connected to him began behaving as if someone or something was still using it. The legend is simple. A typewriter associated with Mark Twain is said to have produced words when no one was touching it. Short fragments, strange phrases, names, dates, sentences that seemed unfinished, not polished enough to be a published work, not random enough to feel meaningless. And that is where the story becomes unsettling, because Twain himself was obsessed with death, not in a quiet way, not in the distant philosophical way some writers approach it. Twain lived surrounded by it. He was born in 1835, the same year Halley's comet appeared in the sky. All his life, he believed there was something cosmic about that. He predicted that since he arrived with the comet, he would leave with it too. And in 1910, when Halley's comet returned, Mark Twain died. That fact alone has fueled more ghost stories than almost anything else in his life. A writer born under a comet, a writer who predicted his own death, a writer whose books were filled with river fog, graveyards, murderers, superstition, lost children, and boys sneaking through cemeteries at midnight. If any American author was going to leave behind a haunted object, people say it would be Twain. And of all the objects he touched, the typewriter feels like the most personal. A pen can be romantic, a desk can be symbolic, but a typewriter is different. It remembers pressure. Every key must be struck by force. Every letter is a physical impact. The machine does not simply record language. It is attacked into speech. A typewriter is a device built from repetition, rhythm, and contact. Finger to key, key to lever, lever to ribbon, ribbon to paper. Thought becomes motion, motion becomes ink. And if you believe objects can absorb human energy, then a writer's typewriter would not just be a tool. It would be a container for frustration, for genius, for obsession, for unfinished ideas. And Twain had plenty of unfinished darkness. Behind the humor, his life was filled with grief. He lost his younger brother Henry after a steamboat explosion. He lost his son Langdon as a child. He lost his daughter Susie, whose death devastated him. He lost his wife Olivia after years of illness. He watched the people closest to him disappear one by one, while he remained behind, older, sharper, sadder, and more haunted by memory. By the end of his life, Twain's comedy had turned darker. His essays became more bitter. His view of humanity grew colder. The man who once made America laugh had become a man surrounded by ghosts. So when stories began circulating about a typewriter connected to him acting strangely, the legend found the perfect soil. People claimed the machine would click at night, not constantly, not dramatically, just once. Then again. A single key pressed in an empty room, then another, as if someone invisible were trying to remember how to spell. Others claimed that paper left in the machine would show marks by morning. Not full pages, not perfect paragraphs, just impressions, letters, fragments. The kind of thing that makes skeptics shrug and believers lean closer. One version of the legend says the letters formed initials connected to Twain's family. Another says the words resembled phrases from his later writings, darker, stranger, more cynical than the adventures most readers associate with him. And another version claims the typewriter never wrote anything recognizable at all. It simply moved. That may be the most disturbing version, because if the machine wrote clear sentences, people could call it a hoax. If it typed a famous quote, people could call it staged. But random key strikes, half-formed letters, mechanical movement with no obvious purpose, that feels less like performance, and more like a presence struggling to return. Of course, there are explanations. Old machines settle, metal contracts with temperature changes, keys can stick, springs can loosen. A typewriter is not a silent object. It is full of tension, levers, rods, and parts waiting to move. A noise in the night does not prove a ghost. A mark on a page does not prove Twain came back from the dead. But haunted legends do not survive because they are easy to prove. They survive because they feel true in a way facts cannot completely destroy. And the haunted typewriter legend feels true because Mark Twain never really left American culture. His words are still read. His face is still recognized. His voice, sarcastic, brilliant, skeptical, still feels alive. Twain once wrote about superstition with the eye of a man who both mocked it and understood its power. He knew that people laugh at ghost stories in daylight, then remember them differently after midnight. He understood that fear does not need proof. It only needs a crack in certainty. And a typewriter provides that crack perfectly. Imagine the room empty, the desk still, the old machine sitting under glass or in shadow or in the corner of a historic room. No hands near it, no paper moving, no one speaking. Then a key drops, one letter, a tiny mechanical sound, meaningless by itself. But once you hear it, your mind does the rest. Who pressed it? Why that letter? Why now? And if it happened again, would you stay long enough to see what it was trying to say? That is the power of the legend. It does not ask you to believe Mark Twain is standing beside the desk in a white suit, dictating from beyond the grave. It asks something smaller, and much worse. What if a part of him remained attached to the act of writing? What if a mind that powerful, that restless, that unfinished, could not fully release the machine that helped carry his words into the modern age? Twain was not just a novelist. He was a performer, a critic, a traveler, a public speaker, an inventor in spirit, and a man obsessed with technology. He loved progress, but he distrusted humanity. He embraced new machines, but he knew every invention came with a shadow. The typewriter was one of those inventions. It promised speed, it promised clarity, it promised a new era of communication. But in ghost stories, machines often become dangerous because they blur the line between the living and the dead. A telephone can carry a voice, a camera can capture a face, a recorder can preserve a sound, and a typewriter can make the dead appear to speak. No breath required, no body required, just keys, ink, paper, and a message. That may be why the haunted Mark Twain typewriter story continues to fascinate people. It is not only about a ghost, it is about authorship itself. When a writer dies, what remains? The body is gone, the voice is gone, the hand no longer moves, but the words remain. They keep speaking, they keep changing people. They keep appearing in classrooms, libraries, films, speeches, and conversations. In that sense, every writer is a kind of ghost, and Mark Twain may be one of the loudest ghosts America ever produced. So maybe the haunted typewriter is not haunted in the traditional sense. Maybe it does not need chains rattling in the dark. Maybe it does not need a face in a window. Maybe the haunting is simpler than that. A machine once connected to a man who changed literature sits quietly, carrying the memory of every sentence he forced into the world. And when people hear a click in the silence, they are not just hearing metal. They are hearing the possibility that stories do not die when writers do. They wait, they linger, they press against the page. And sometimes, if the legend is true, they type back. But there is one final detail that makes this story even stranger. Mark Twain spent his life laughing at human certainty. He mocked arrogance, exposed hypocrisy, and questioned everything people claimed to know. If anyone could appreciate the absurdity of becoming a ghost story attached to a typewriter, it would be him. And if anyone would find a way to turn death into one last joke, it would be Mark Twain. Maybe that is the real reason the legend survives. Not because people are certain the typewriter is haunted, but because somewhere in the back of the mind, the idea feels exactly like something Twain would do. A final prank, a final message, a final line delivered from the other side. Not written in ink by a living hand, but hammered out, one key at a time, by whatever remains when a storyteller refuses to be silent. So if you ever find yourself near an old typewriter tied to a famous writer, look closely, check the paper, watch the keys, and if a single letter appears while no one is touching it, do not ask who typed it. Ask what it wants to say next.